to order at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. First order of business is roll call.
Casey Hoffman.
Susan Hinton.
Kevin Shell.
Keith Martinson.
Jerry Spitel. I guess the next task is to swear in anyone who will be speaking at this meeting. Okay.
Casey.
Kevin Shell.
I'm happy to provide context for the item on Google if you would like, so. Do I need to be sworn in?
No, this isn't a variance or hearing. This is just it's
Clarification.
an odd thing, honestly. I've never done one in my 20-some years. It's just a request for clarification of a formal ruling. So nobody needs
Since-
to be sworn in. It's-
Okay.
And
Since
it's
I will be
really-
speaking, I
you-
don't need to.
No, they can ask any questions they want, but it's just making sure that what has been, I guess, approved is consistent with their ruling. They've been asked to just verify that.
Correct.
So that's a pretty straightforward question. Here's what was approved. Is it consistent with your? So.
Correct.
Any presentation you think would be appropriate or appropriate. I'm not saying you can't speak. I'm just saying you don't need to be sworn in.
Okay.
Public comments. Consent agenda. Discussion and possible action on the minutes from the April 15, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I would so move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Discussion and possible action on the minutes from the June 27, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting.
I would move again.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I beat you to it.
Minutes of both board meetings are approved unanimously. Regular agenda item, discussion and possible action on the election of a chair to the Board of Adjustment. Just by way of background, every January or whenever we have our first meeting every year, the board chair is up for re-election.
Oh,
or election.
you're not quitting, are you?
I am happy to continue to serve if the board so wishes.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Four yes, one abstention.
May I say thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is clarification or confirmation of the location of the tennis courts as it relates to the Board of Adjustment January 11th, 2023 approval of a special exception under section 107-491A Part 2 of the city's Code of Ordinances, which granted the enlargement and expansion of the non-conforming tennis courts at the Western Hills Athletic Club, 4801 Rollingwood Drive.
Thank you, Board. So we are here to ask for,
Can I ask who you are, please?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm Nikki Stotzenberger. I'm the Development Services Manager. So sorry. So what we are here for is actually just asking for a confirmation or clarification that what the city council approved, which is on the singular page that you have that I provided, it was an entire site plan, but this was just one of the pages that laid out what the courts were, and it was the impervious coverage plan, very similar to the impervious coverage plan that was a part of the BOA special exception packet. So what we are here for is clarification, confirmation that the site plan layout of the courts that was approved by council, does that match or meet your intent of your approval from your special exception in January of '23?
What was approved? Was this approved by council, the one that had the square?
Yes.
This is approved by council?
That was approved by the Board of Adjustment, so that,
No, the Board of Adjustment approved the staggered one. You go back and read our minutes.
okay,
Jerry moved specifically the page, the plot plan on page 27 with the California corners and the staggered was what we were approving.
okay. So in the stapled packet that you have available, that's page 27 of it. And so that is the page that y'all approved as part of it. And,
They look staggered to
It-
me, but
It's staggered because it's in color. If you look at, I meant to bring a color one with me, but the actual staggered one is, they have it overlaid, yellow on here. And so we approved the staggered plan.
okay,
Wasn't just a handout we got the day
So-
of. the
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, it was a
Clear
last
up.
minute change on their part.
okay.
So I guess I'm unclear on what the question for clarification is. These look the
Sure.
same to me.
Okay. Sarah Hudson, 2805 Rockaway. So what brought this up is at the last council meeting, the last one? Yes. The April council meeting, okay. We, the rest of council, approved the site plan that Board of Adjustment submitted. And that day before the meeting, I had gone up to the pool to take one last look at all the trees and see if there wasn't something that they could do differently so that they didn't have to cut down all the trees for putting in the new courts. And as I was leaving, the pool manager was there and she asked me if, can I help you, whatever, and I told her that I was just looking at the trees and seeing if there was any way to adjust things. The pool manager was there and she asked me if, can I help you, whatever, and I told her that I was just looking at the trees and seeing if there was any. Okay. Anyway, so council voted, it was approved, end of story. The next day I got an email from one of the board members who thanked me, thanked me for council approving this and, for working with it, and that the pool manager had told them that I had been up there looking. And they were open to any suggestions. And I said, my thoughts were that if they didn't stagger and had the new courts in line with the old courts, that they could save some of the trees. They'd be essentially building a big part of the courts on the existing volleyball court, sand volleyball court that already doesn't have any trees on it. So it looked like they could save some of the trees if they didn't stagger. And I said, or you could just build 2 pickleball courts where the volleyball courts are and not put 2 tennis courts, and then you could save a whole lot of the trees. So that was the email that I sent back. And the question that I received back on that was, if we did that, not which one of them, but if they didn't stagger, would that have to go back to the Board of Adjustment? And I said I didn't know, so I came up here and Al and I looked at the drawings, and the drawing that was in the packet that we found online for what you all approved did not show it being staggered, or was.
It was hard to see.
It was hard to see. Well, the interior line is does not show it being staggered. The little white line shows it being staggered on the outside edge. But in any case, the newer one that the council got, it shows it clearly being staggered. And so it didn't look like they were quite the same. And so that was a concern that the council and Board of Adjustment didn't approve the same plan. But the whole thing that brought this back up again was the thought that maybe if they didn't do the I said that was not really offered, because when they presented to you all, they didn't indicate how many trees would have to come down with the change in the stagger or not. And I said, I thought that because they already have, there's already an incursion into the setback that was approved for the existing courts. It's already there. And so that having a straight line across the outer edge of the existing courts, because there's also not a house next to those, where those courts would be, that would not be an imposition to anybody, but by doing that, they might be able to save some of the trees that would then be between the new courts and the building. And so that was the question that brought all of this back again, was, their question was, did it have to go back to the Board of Adjustment? And then we found that the plans didn't look like they were quite the same, and so then that needed to be clarified also. But if you think that what you approved was the stagger, then the question would be, if they didn't stagger it, would that be acceptable in order to save trees?
Yeah, but we're not anywhere near there. This is only about the clarification, because we didn't give notice for anything else. So the only issue that can be discussed tonight is what, before you, consistent with what you approved. And then if there are other issues that come up later, then it'll go through it'll go whatever process is required to go through.
Well, that's
But-
what we were trying to find out, was what would the process be for that?
Well, right, I don't know who, I'm not sure who we
So-
is, but the council approved a plan based on a variance that this board gave.
Right?
Then the question came up of whether or not it was consistent, and so we're like, all right, we'll just bring it back to the board to see if it's consistent with the plan. And so that's the only thing on the agenda tonight, is if what council approved, and I can't remember who voted for what, but what council approved as a whole, is it consistent? If it is, and someone has an issue with that, and I don't know what that would be, but if someone does, we would just follow the appropriate processes. I don't
Right.
know what those would be.
So I'm looking at the layout that we had. This is the packet from the meeting on January 11th.
Okay.
And I drew on it so I could see where, because it was hard to see, but outlined in yellow on there is the staggered courts, and that's my understanding of what we approved. So
Okay.
I would say that what the council has approved is in agreement with what the Board of Adjustment approved.
Okay.
But,
The black and
that's
white
the only
that we
thing we're
looked
allowed
at,
to talk about today, so I
yeah,
think
well,
that.
the black and white version, when we were looking at it online,
No,
on the
it
computer,
was-
was small, and it looked like that the plan that had been originally submitted did not have the stagger in it, so.
No, obviously, it was not as straightforward as
Right.
the engineers might wish, because otherwise I wouldn't have been drawing in yellow on the printout to make sure that I
Right.
understood what was
Right.
going on.
But anyway, that's why this got brought back up again at all.
So what do we need to do?
Just a motion that it's consistent with your previously approved variance and vote, and that's it.
Do I have a motion?
I so move that it's consistent with what the Board of Adjustment approves.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we need a voice vote on that?
It sounded unanimous. Can we agree on the record it was unanimous? No.
Yes. Are we done?
We're done.
Okay, the Board of Adjustment meeting is closed at 4:44 PM on
That's a record.
May 28th.
So will they do that?